evening. And for our cadets and cadre that are joining us from the West Coast and points further west, good afternoon and good morning. Thank you for spending some time here with us this evening as we have a discussion about what's going on in our Army and also across Cadet Command. I'd like to thank you also for everything that you've already done, the efforts that you've made within yourselves for our cadets, our cadre, and the programs across the country who've had to deal with the coronavirus, COVID-19, as all of us have, in an era of confusion sometimes and uncertainty. What I'd like to do is tell you who we're going to have talking to you tonight, and then we'll get right down to the town hall. To my left is the Deputy Commanding General, Brigadier General Andy Munera. And behind the cameras tonight, we've got supporting staff from across Cadet Command that will be here to try to answer your questions. And what I'd like to do is try to accomplish three things tonight. First of all, I want to provide you some context about what the Army's doing in light of the current challenge with coronavirus COVID-19. Secondly, I want to provide some guidance on the things you can do now to prepare yourselves for the challenge at hand and the operating environment that we're going to be dealing with over the next several months. And then finally, we would collectively like to try to answer specific questions that our cadets and cadre may have about cadet summer training, commissioning, scholarships, and other topics of concern across the command. Let me start by setting the tone about where we're at in our Army. For many of you who may not be in touch with our Army right now, that's cadets and cadre, we have recently gone to Health Protection Condition Charlie, which means that all of the installations in the Army right now are at the second highest level of health protection. As we moved into HPCon Charlie, it has restricted our movements. We've got right now a stop move directive in place until the 11th of May for all permanent change of stations and all temporary duty assignments with very rare exception. As we take a look at what our nation is facing right now, these are uncertain times for all of us. So for those of you who are turning in as cadets and thinking, how does the Army handle something like this? I'll tell you quite frankly, we are learning as we go. So there is going to continue to be uncertainty within the Army and within our ranks until we can get a little bit more of an idea of which direction the virus is going to go. So that's the first thing. Secondly, none of us are really familiar with the types of solutions we're going to have to apply. And when I say that, I mean we're going to have to think outside the box as we take a look at your training, your education, how we're going to get you commissioned, what we're going to do to deal with things that are generally routine matters like cadet actions and scholarships, but we are going to get there, and together we're going to be able to solve this problem. I want to ask you to do something for not just yourselves, but for all of us here at the command and across the Army. I need you to continue to comply with CDC guidelines with regards to how you conduct yourselves personally in the space out there. Now, what we've seen in the press has been some folks, frankly, younger folks, that have not been taking seriously the threat that we see with coronavirus, COVID-19. I'll tell you, it's very serious, and we want you to continue to think of it as serious. Follow CDC guidelines with regards to social distancing and not gathering in large crowds. If you're participating in online instruction, and those of you who aren't likely will be very soon because you're coming back from spring break or extended spring breaks, I would encourage you to continue to do that. I need you to participate. I'm working very, very hard to make sure that we can commission all of our cadets, but in order to do that, you've got to participate online in the virtual instruction that has to do with your baccalaureate degree and also with regards to ROTC instruction. If you're running into hurdles there, I need you to talk to your cadre about that so we can solve those problems for you. But I need you engaged, and I need you talking to your ROTC department to get the latest updates. I'm going to let the DCG handle some questions in a minute about ROTC Advanced Camp and other cadet summer training activities. But let me start by saying we still don't have a lot of certainty about what's going to occur this summer. We're going to be looking at different options, and we're going to present Army senior leaders with those options, but we are still working on that problem set. For our FY20 cohort, our seniors, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that you get commissioned on time. I believe we can do this. I've talked with senior leaders in the Army. We will go in and seek some waiver requirements for some of you who have not met all of the commissioning requirements. Some of you may be asked to meet rate waiver requirements later on, but we're going to work diligently to get everyone who is fully qualified commissioned in May. So that's for our seniors out there. For our juniors, obviously the big thing we've got to think about is ROTC Advanced Camp. But our plan at Cadet Command is to ensure that we get you the training that is required so that you can commission on time in FY21. That's our focus. Let me wrap up by saying, before I hand it over to the DCG, during these times, I know there's a lot of uncertainty. I know there's a lot of trepidation in the force. I know many of you are wondering what's going to happen to you in your specific situation. Let me assure you that to the degree that I can control it, no cadet will be disadvantaged by virtue of not having an opportunity to complete training that would normally be required for the ROTC commissioning experience. If you continue to apply yourself, we're going to make sure that we get you commissioned. And that's my charge to you, is to continue to apply yourselves. With that, I'll turn it over to the DCG.
Well, thank you, sir. And good evening to the cadets and the cadre out there, and equally important to the families that are out there, the moms and dads. I've already taken a number of questions on moms and dads, and one of the things that I wanted to address up front that I know is on the mind of all the cadets and their parents out there is what are we doing with cadet summer training. Cadet summer training defined as advanced camp for our MS3s, our rising seniors, basic camp for our lateral entry cadets, and then cadet summer training also encompasses all those schools, internships, and CTLT experiences that we provide to cadets. And so I'll go back to what the boss said from the very beginning, that it is very uncertain times, and we are still planning to execute all of them. They will probably not be how we've done them in the past, and if we execute them, you can probably expect that they will be maybe a little bit truncated than we have done in the past. What I would ask you to do up front, going back to what the commanding general said, is in these times I need you all to be flexible, take accountability of yourselves, especially since you're not going to be able to conduct on-hand training or hands-on training with your cadre, and so participate in the online training. All that will keep you focused for cadet summer training, and then most importantly, the thing that you can all do, and one of the most important things that we always do in the Army, is stay physically fit. So I challenge you all out there to be physically fit. So as we look at advanced camp, we are looking at various options to execute advanced camp. I wish I could give you a definitive answer right now, but I'm assuming in the next 3 weeks we'll be able to solidify what cadet summer training might look like for this year. Again, we're probably not going to be able to execute the full summer training as your peers have experienced in years past, and if we execute it, it'll probably be a truncated version of cadet summer training, and that's for advanced camp and for those lateral entry cadets coming into basic camp. For those that are going to, planning to go to schools and internships, again, we're still planning on executing those, but because of the current environment, we imagine that there will be changes and it will not be executed as it has been in the past, and we will be competing with many active duty units who aren't able to participate in some of these schools because of the current environment. But we'll do the very best we can to execute those courses and to get you to those courses when they become available. But the one thing I will tell you up front as we look at executing any of this training, your health and welfare is the #1 priority for us, and we will not execute any training until the environment and the conditions are in place to do so safely.
Okay, at this time I think we're going to take some questions. Some of the questions have already been fed to us. We asked for questions early on. We've got some of those. We'll take those up front, and after we've had an opportunity to work through several of those, we'll go out to our live audience and take additional questions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rich Patterson from the Public Affairs Office, and I'll be moderating the questions this evening. I will start with the questions we received over the last couple of days in advance, and then we'll scan through our Cadet Command Facebook page for any new questions that may come through in the live feed. So, sir, the first question is, what, to the best of your knowledge right now, is what is the plan for advance camp, and when will we know whether advance camp will actually be happening or not?
Yeah, so as the DCG just said, the number one priority for Cadet Command for the Army is your health and welfare and safety. So we're not going to introduce our cadets into an environment where we can't ensure their safety and their ability to complete training. With regards to the exact timeline, we are going to start briefing senior leaders as early as next week on what our options are. There's actually some decision space for them to make some decisions a little bit later, so it may be several weeks before we know. What I can tell you is as soon as we know for sure, definitively, how we will execute the summer cycles, summer training to include advanced camp and all other activities, we will let you know, and we plan to conduct another town hall so that we can answer additional questions should they arise.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for our Director of Recruiting, Marketing, and Incentives Division. Will the last ROTC Scholarship Board be delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Hey, good evening. Colonel Sonsalo from Recruiting, Marketing, and Incentives. Our third board concluded early this morning, and we anticipate the release of our final list of winners sometime next week. Of course, timelines change constantly, and should that timeline change, we will notify you through the Cadet Command social media channels.
Thanks, Scott.
So the next question is for our G1. Are the BOLC dates getting pushed due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Good evening, Colonel Edwin Chilton, the Cadet Command G1. Current second lieutenants who are scheduled and have orders to attend the BOLC B between now and 11 May are on hold, basically the stop move. We will work with each second lieutenant individually if rescheduled is required. Current cadets in FY20 cohort who are to commission in this spring are being rescheduled for BOLC Bs after 11 May, and will move to those BOLC Bs unless told differently by this battalion or the headquarters. Those cadets who have been scheduled in October 20 or later BOLC Bs should be receiving auto-generated emails from ATARs with their scheduled BOLC B classes. This email will come to your .mil email addresses. We will continue to publish orders for the FY20 cohort as we receive RFOs from Human Resources Command. Once complete, the battalion HRAs should be pulling those orders from CSIM and providing to the cadets via the enterprise email. Orders will not be published for cadets in the FY20 cohort who were scheduled to support the CST until final decisions are made on the conduct of the CST this summer. Sir, that's all I've got.
Yeah, let me just add to that, Edwin. I think it's important that everybody understand that right now flexibility is key. So the G1 just gave you a good idea of what we believe a timeline will look like if we are able to recover quickly and the Army can get back to training. But I can tell you, as a member of TRADOC, right now very little training is occurring in the Army. The Army is assuming that risk in order to keep the force safe and preserve our combat power for the future. And there will be a little bit of a startup period required. So I'm asking each of you, should you get orders for BOLC, to be understanding if you see those orders slip to the right a couple of weeks. The important thing to understand is you need to be ready to go when the Army needs you to go.
Okay, sir, the next question is, what are the impacts on cadets commissioning through the early commissioning program?
Yeah, so right now, and I'll have Scott give some additional context here. So for right now, for our FY20 cohort cadets that are doing ECP, we should be able to commission you on time, provided you've met all requirements. As we're looking at the cohort for next year, we've got a little bit different situation, particularly if we have problems conducting cadet summer training. But we are going to work through those in stride, and we're going to come up with a solution for that. I'll kick it over to Colonel Sonsalo to see if he's got anything to add.
Sir, along with your comments previously, our intent is to commission the ECP cadets as originally planned, to keep them on as close to a timeline as we can, along with the other commissionees from all of our colleges and universities across the U.S.
Okay, sir, the next question is, will commissioning ceremonies be happening with all the university closures, or how are they going to handle that?
Yeah, so a really good question. The DCG, myself, the Chief of Staff, met with all of the brigade commanders virtually today for about 2 hours to discuss that, among other things. And I'll tell you, there are some really good ideas out there about how we can conduct the ceremonies and give them the same degree of prestige that we would normally have in a large group commissioning. They're working on some really innovative ideas. But the bottom line is, we're going to need you to serve in the Army. So we're not going to wait on an opportunity to get together in the aggregate and do a big ceremony in an auditorium. We're probably going to look at a way to do that virtually in much the same ways that many of your colleges and universities are looking at possible virtual commencement exercises. More to follow on that as we develop that, but our plan is to give you an opportunity to experience your commissioning with your family and with the PMSs and the cadre that you've trained with, and then to be able to move off and do great things for our Army.
Sir, and I think the good news that we heard today is many of the universities and campuses were also very interested, and it was important to them that the importance of the administration at the universities that they conduct those types of ceremonies. And so they will help out and make sure that we do it and do it in the right way.
Okay, sir, the next two questions are for our command nurse. So, sir, will cadets who had a slot at the NSTP program get another opportunity if it is canceled?
Hey team, this is Colonel Wisegram, the command nurse. Exceptional question. Just like everybody else in this complex care environment of what we're doing with COVID, we are working very diligently with the senior leaders of both Cadet Command, MedCom, DHA to get those training opportunities. We understand you have a valued skill set, and we want to ensure that your education and abilities to support the force are being done. With that being said, as the senior leadership has said, we're making decisions and analysis on every action, and we hope to have some guidance out in the near future as potential situations. Just like before, as the leadership has explained, it is a changing environment, so what your colleagues and friends did the years prior, it will be a version different from that, but we're working our best of ability. What I would implore you is to stay in contact with your brigade nurse counselors. They're your key to getting essential information regarding nurse summer training program. Sir.
Okay, sir, the next one's a little long. It's also for the nurse. Sir, how are we engaging the accrediting bodies who have not yet waived clinical, practicum, or internship requirements? The primary concern is nursing as Cadet Command is the primary provider of Army nurses. But there are other medical specialties that are also holding on to their clinical hour requirements. This is ultimately a protect the force issue.
And with the status of healthcare, that is an exceptional question at this time and stage. Currently, the Army Nurse Corps and the other senior leaders of the Army Medical Department are working with state and national accrediting bodies to determine what are the regulatory requirements for allowing personnel to work in the facilities earlier than their expected graduation dates. One must remember that we have to take the public safety and health of our personnel that we are caring for as our first priority. We want to ensure that we entertain a safe, evidence-based practice of healthcare, and the Army Nurse Corps, as long as the other members of the Army Medical Department, are working with the state and federal bodies to ensure that we do that. As we know more, each state will publish that, so I recommend going to the state board's website and your national organizations, and they will give you your COVID update at the time. Sir.
Thanks, Brian.
Sir, the next question is for our command surgeon. So, sir, for those of us that are completing flight physicals in order to be eligible for aviation, will there be an extension to the deadline for those to be completed? With the current restrictions, Phase 2 flight physicals aren't being completed, and they will not be able to be completed by June.
Hello, Cadet Command. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Tom Summers. I'm the command surgeon here. Nice question. We have identified this early on, and I've been in communication with our friends down at Fort Rucker on how to proceed. The first thing I would like to highlight is in line with what Major General Evans has put out, is to take all guidance at this time from CDC, local and state authorities of how to handle the current situation. Fort Rucker recognizes the situation as well, and we're working on developing some guidance on the way forward to put out to you in the near future of how to handle these upcoming flight physicals. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, sir, the next question is again for our Recruiting, Marketing, Incentives Division Chief. So are cadets who are on scholarship and/or contracted guaranteed a job as a second lieutenant after passing advance camp? In the event of an economic recession and military budget cuts, are those jobs in jeopardy?
I'd just like to reiterate that the Army still has a need for leaders, and we will continue to do everything we can to keep you on the commissioning timelines that have been set forth. And along with that, we will strive to push you out to your BOLA courses so that we can get you out to the components as necessary, whether that be active, guard, or the reserve. For those that have benefits out there, such as the Cadet Command stipends and your scholarships, we will attempt to continue to pay those as long as your schools are in session and you're attending school. So there should be no disadvantages, as our commanding general has said.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Let me just add that, you know, it's exceptionally rare for the Army to curtail the service of lieutenants historically. Generally speaking, certainly you're our youngest officers. You're the upcoming group of leaders that the Army's looking for. But we have to roll with the Army's changes as well. There's nothing that I'm seeing signal right now that requires us to reduce the number of lieutenants that we currently have in the pipeline. So as long as you meet commissioning requirements, our intent is to commission you as an Army officer within one of our 3 components.
Thank you, sir. Next question, we're getting quite a few of these questions, is will not having a record PT test within the last 6 months postpone commissioning for cadets this spring?
Okay, to answer in a word, no, it won't postpone commissioning. What we are doing is going back to look for a way that we can ensure that no cadet is unfairly disadvantaged by not having a PT test. As the crisis evolved, as it were, some of the cadets had already taken their spring PT test and had one on record. Some had it scheduled and didn't have an opportunity to take it. My intent, and I shared this with the brigade commanders today, is to make sure that we don't disadvantage you by having not taken that PT test. We're working through several different options and solutions on that. I'll leave it at that, but the bottom line is it's not going to keep you from getting commissioned.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, if our state has moved to a shelter in place and we're not allowed to go outside, how can we do cardio and maintain physical fitness as we prepare to come to cadet summer training?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I haven't seen what all the state guidance has been with regards to sheltering in place, but my understanding is in most instances, you can go outside and continue to work out as long as you're not doing so in large groups, particularly in your local area. Now, again, I'll refer back to what your public officials have told you, but you got to get creative in times like this. You can put together a pretty good cardio workout, you know, in your own living room if you know how to do it. There's lots and lots of resources out there. I can tell you, I've seen our own Instagram from all of your programs blowing up with cadets and cadre that are offering opportunities to get after fitness in the absence of gyms and organized PT. The Army's stance on fitness has always been that is an individual soldier responsibility. So get creative, do a little research on the internet. I think you'll find out there's ways for you to sustain your fitness even in the most restrictive times.
Yeah, I would say get creative. I think most of you probably saw, I think it was a couple days ago, one of the guys in France who couldn't go outside his apartment completed an entire marathon on his balcony. Now, it's not something I would probably do, but it's an example of what creativity and things you can do.
Okay, sir. With the possibility of a shortened advance camp, will branch interviews still happen if it is shortened or canceled?
So, yeah, I'll take that one. It's a great question. So as we move towards talent-based branching, you know, one of the key components of that is the branch commandants being able to interview all the cadets. And if we are not able to execute cadet summer training where you can do some of those those personal interviews, we have a plan in place to use a virtual program where we can branch commandants can interview every cadet. And so we'll make sure that that happens, and we're planning to do that regardless of whether we're going to execute camp or not. But I would like to, talk to the cadets. It's very important as you're thinking about what branch that you are interested in, that you make sure you seek out those interviews and conduct those interviews with those branches, because it is the branch commandants and their staffs who are going to decide, which cadets are most preferred and talents best match their branch. And a lot of that will be influenced by the interviews that you conduct. So to answer the question up front, is we've got a program, it's called HireView. We're going to get it out to all the programs so each cadet will get a chance to do interviews with the branches that they are interested in.
Let me add to that real quick too. So it kind of speaks to an opportunity you have right now as we continue to look at being isolated, as it were, and not being able to gather together to have discussions or briefings. You have a great opportunity right now to do a little research on your own with regards to what our branches do. There are great resources across the Army. I'll work with the staff. We'll post some of those so that those of you who aren't sure which branch you want right now, or those of you who may think you're sure which branch you want, can go out there and really explore and dig down into what each of our branches does in the Army. What we find a lot of times is some branches gain a least preference or a least preferable spot on the preference form because people don't understand what that branch is doing. And then when they have an opportunity to understand how vital it is to the whole functioning of our Army, it's pretty illuminating. So take this opportunity to get out there and dig into all of our branches and make yourself well informed so that you can make a better choice when it comes time for you to cast your vote on where you want to preference branches.
Okay, sir, the next question is for our National Guard advisor. Can I still pursue the SMP program this summer?
Good evening. I'm Colonel Glenn Chancellor. I'm the Senior National Guard Advisor to Cadet Command. The short answer is absolutely. The National Guard's open for business. As you can see that they are mobilizing, activating certain units to support the states to answer the governor's call for emergency response. So absolutely you can continue to pursue the SMP program.
And sir, the same question to our U.S. Army Reserve advisor.
Good evening. I'm Colonel Ken Crow, the Senior Advisor for the United States Army Reserve, and the answer holds true for the Army Reserve. You can definitely pursue the SMP program, and there's a couple of questions that I fielded the last couple of days reference to the SMP program and how that affects potential mobilizations today. As of today, no United States Army Reserve units have been mobilized. There are a number of Army Reserve units that have warning orders for mobilization, and many cadets have received those warning orders in terms of prepare to mobilize. I want to be clear that the United States Army, as a United States Army SMP cadet, current policy directs that you may not be mobilized. With that understanding, we're in unique times and there's waivers that are being signed daily. So be prepared. Second part of that answer is the Chief of the Army Reserve has authorized units that are on the mobilization list to initiate annual training to prepare for mobilization. When the order hits, the CAR wants the units to be ready to roll out the door. So many of you may have received AT orders or may receive AT orders in the next few days. The question then comes, should you follow those orders? Absolutely. That's an annual training order that you need to follow. You need to report to your unit. You may have the opportunity to push that unit out the door, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But follow that AT order, and clear guidance has been given. Exception to policy for the movement to get on those AT orders has already been approved, so move out when you get the order. Thank you.
Okay, sir, the next question is again for our Recruiting, Marketing, and Incentives Division Chief. Will scholarship benefits be paid over the summer if the shutdown affects a cadet being able to finish their degree requirements this spring?
Good question. By regulation, we are allowed to pay for 8 semesters of tuition not specific to spring, summer, or fall. Typically, it's spring and fall with exceptions for summer. As far as stipends, we are restricted to paying 20 months' worth of stipend for the basic course, which is MS1 and 2, and another 20 months for MS3 and 4. So our intent is to maximize those incentives. Again, along with what our commanding general has said, there's no intent to disadvantage anybody because of the situation you're in. If you're attending school, you will receive your benefits.
Thank you, sir. And again, for the Director of ARMID, for underclassmen cadets on scholarship, if their school switches from a letter grade system to a pass-fail system for their classes, will that affect their scholarship GPA requirements and scholarship payments?
Great question. We have been pondering this in the basement right now. Normally, when a school offers a pass-fail option, which many of our schools are executing right now, your grade would be entered as a 2.0, and we all know that that is below the standard for our scholarship students. So we are looking to engage our leadership to determine if there will be a blanket waiver for that GPA for a pass-fail class. No determination made at this time, but strongly recommend that you consider not taking the class pass-fail for a variety of reasons. But, sir, I don't know if you want to jump on that one.
Let me jump on that one a little bit, Scott. Thanks for that. Here's general guidance, okay? You need to do your best. You need to apply yourself. The fact that you're not sitting in a classroom now is not an excuse to rest on your laurels and not do a good job. Apply yourself with the virtual learning and virtual curriculum delivery system that your university is using. And then if you're applying yourself and you have the advocacy of your PMS, your brigade commander, then I will make sure that we are not disadvantaging you based on that. What I can't abide is someone who decides not to participate and takes the easy road out and then comes back to me for a waiver at some point. I need you to be engaged. This is what our Army does. You're going to be Army officers. Do your best, you do your best, and we'll take care of you.
And I'll just follow up on what the commanding general just talked about. So you probably have the same question about the order of merit list, a letter grade versus a pass-fail grade. Again, we will not disadvantage any cadet, and we're working through options to make sure everything is equitable when the OMLs go forward, and everybody gets a fair playing field for everybody.
Okay, sir, thank you. The next question is, what is the plan for end-of-camp commissionees that we're supposed to commission at the end of this cadet summer training if it is shortened or canceled?
Yeah. So the plan right now is for me to maximize my waiver authority and ensure that we commission those, there's about 416 of you out there, on time. So if you are disadvantaged by not having an opportunity to attend camp, should a decision be made that we not conduct camp, or should camp get truncated, then we will make sure that you get commissioned. Let me say it this way. Not having an opportunity to attend advanced camp this summer that's out of your control will not keep you from becoming a lieutenant. It does mean that you're going to have to work a little bit harder when you get to BOLC, because you will have not had that common experience that other people have had. But I know you're up to that task.
Okay, sir. How will second lieutenants who are supposed to report to CST early be supported? If CST is truncated or canceled, are we still planning on bringing them to Fort Knox early?
Yes. So if advanced camp or cadet summer training holistically is truncated, or for some reason we don't conduct it this summer, we will likely not bring lieutenants to Fort Knox because we don't have capacity for you. We are looking at opportunities to possibly use some of that capacity to go back to your programs as Gold Bar recruiters. That's in the works right now. It's in staffing. We've got some additional staff work to do. It would be my intent to bring them on active duty when I can, as quickly as I can, but we've got a lot of things to work out between now and then to determine whether or not that's going to be possible.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, will anything be changed for educational delays? Tests like the MCAT are being pushed back, and will that shift the entire application cycle?
Yeah, so again, let me just say in general, we're in very unique times right now. So we're seeing challenges not just within our ROTC environment, but also across the educational environment. And not just for undergraduate degrees, but for advanced degrees, which include medical school and other things. So we are going to try to conform to that environment. We're going to look for opportunities to be able to facilitate the same training timeline that a cadet might be on. If for some reason that has to slip, we're going to look for ways to do that so that it doesn't disadvantage the cadet or the officer. But again, there are many unknowns right now as we take a look and dialogue with the colleges and universities and post-secondary education institutions that are out there right now. We're working through a lot of that.
Thank you, sir. The next one is either for either gentleman at the table or for the doc. Is there going to be an organized COVID-19 testing or other things we'll do for cadet summer training if we run cadet summer training for testing people coming into Fort Knox, the cadets and the cadre, to mitigate the risk to all coming to Fort Knox?
Let me take that because I want to make sure that everybody understands. So one of the challenges we're faced with right now in the Army and in our nation is the testing modalities. We're working to build capability there, and the doctor can talk a little bit more about that aspect of it. What I can tell you with assurance is we're going to verify that the group of cadets that are going to train are safe and healthy, whether that is using a test or screening method, or whether that is putting them in isolation for some amount of time to ensure that they don't have a contagion. We're going to do something to make sure that that population is safe. Right now, testing capacity is limited, and we are not on the BOIP currently to get a lot of tests because we're not an initial entry training installation. Of course, that changes in the summer when we bring on the order of 10,000 cadets here over the course of about 3.5 months. But we will make sure that we're providing a safe training environment. Tom, is there anything you want to provide?
No, sir. I think you addressed that exactly how I would have in regards to the philosophy of screening folks when they would come to the base and how we would handle testing as well.
Okay, thanks. My doc has trained me well.
So, sir, for green to gold ADO option cadets that are commissioning this summer and have received orders to report with report dates in June, are they still going to be able to PCS on time, or are their dates going to be affected and potentially their follow-on assignments?
Yeah, so certainly that's unknown right now. As we take a look at what's going to happen across the Army holistically, like I said, it's going to be a little bit like a big long train starting up. The engine will start moving before the caboose does. I guess we don't use cabooses anymore, but the last car on the train. So it's going to be that kind of that slinky effect. We've got a lot of people who are right now on PCS hold. Many of them are going to critical jobs in the Army. We're going to start moving that cycle as soon as we get the stop move lifted, and our lieutenant population will be part of that to include our 3-year ADO lieutenants.
Sir, I'd like to add on to that. We have a number of folks that were selected as part of our ADO Green to Gold program that have not yet reported to their campuses. If they are unable to report in time for the fall semester to start, what we will do is we will slide their start date to the right so they can report in a timely manner and start their classes, whether that be in the spring or the following year. But again, a cadet will not be disadvantaged because of circumstances out of their control.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the clarity on that. Say again? Oh, are we getting close? We running out? So
we're pretty close. A lot
okay.
of the questions are coming in are repeats of what has already been discussed this evening.
Yeah, so it looks like we're getting a lot of the same questions. What we'll do is we'll leave the mic open here for a minute or two to see if there's anything else that you want to ask either myself or the DCG. I'll give the DCG an opportunity to just talk for a minute, provide any final guidance he's got with regards to preparation for CST.
Yeah, thanks, sir. And it really just goes back to my opening comments. Understand that you will not be able to get back to campus and do hands-on training, so do everything in your power to participate in the online training and rehearsing and practicing for CST, and your cadre knows how to take you through that, and then do everything in your power to stay physically fit and ready to come to camp. You need to continue to plan like you will come to camp. and then be flexible if we make adjustments. But that's the biggest thing I can tell you. And I look forward to so all the cadets out there, seeing all your posts on Instagram and the other social media, showing me what you are doing to stay in shape, and showing me what you're doing to stay ready for a cadet summer training. So that's a challenge out to you in the field there. So, sir, thank you.
Yeah, let me go ahead and wrap up unless do we have another question, Rich?
Well, there is one more for the surgeon or yourself, sir.
Okay.
If an MS4 cadet becomes infected or experiences COVID-19, how will this affect their commissioning if they were previously able to commission and they now have been diagnosed with COVID-19?
Yeah. So what our medical professionals are telling us, keep me on track here, Tom, is that we don't know a lot about this virus with regards to the aftermath. And like we do for any instance where someone has suffered sickness or illness, we evaluate their fitness for training in the Army. And that's what we'll continue to do. Right now, what we are seeing kind of anecdotally is for young, healthy people that come out of the back end of coronavirus COVID-19, they are showing no significant long-term adverse effects. We're just into it though, so be aware of that. But I can share with you that we've had at least one cadet who has tested positive, has come out and has been medically cleared and is doing well and is carrying on life the way they did prior to being infected. So we will obviously evaluate everyone on a case-by-case basis because your health and welfare is our #1 concern. But I have every reason to believe that if we can have people out there that are operating in our Army without limbs and having suffered serious illnesses like cancer and other things, we can probably find a way to work through this.
Okay, sir, what about instructors training and PCSing? If they are arriving after the summer, will instructors' courses be a priority prior to them teaching?
Yeah, so we are working on a myriad of solutions with regards to our cadre right now. We are reinvesting ourselves on virtual delivery of a lot of our curriculum for our instructors. Obviously, we know that contact instruction is the preferred method for them as well. I really take a lot of enjoyment out of sitting down with our instructors at one of the instructor courses and dialoguing with them. I get an awful lot out of that. But we will certainly try to make that a priority. We can expect a backlog, and like I said, that slow-moving train is going to take a little time to get up to speed, and we will accelerate things as quickly as we possibly can and try to reach into the Army for additional resources to do that.
Okay, sir, most of the other questions that are coming in, I think, can be addressed either by you, sir, or General Munera, talking about there's still a lot of questions about CTLT, airborne school, air assault school, what that's going to look like this summer. And that may be for a lot of the people that joined late.
Yeah, no, again, so we don't know what the environment's going to look like. We're doing everything that we're capable of doing to try and offer you all those experiences, whether it's internships, CTLT, and the different badge producing schools, airborne, air assault, and so on. But what we don't know is what the environment is going to look like getting into May, June, July timeframe, and we don't know what the impact that the current environment is having on active duty forces and others that are trying to get to some of those schools. And so we're doing all the planning, but right now we're trying to get you to those courses, but based on what the environment looks like, we may have to adjust when and where you go to school. And then we may have to, some of you may not get the opportunity this year. We may have to look for opportunities in next year if we can do that. I can tell you that any of the OCONUS ones, the ones overseas, we have already called off those for this year, so none of those will be taking place this year.
Okay, so my team here is telling me that we've worked through most of your questions. If we didn't answer your specific question, we didn't do so because it was probably very close to one of the questions that we did answer. What I will encourage you to do is continue to reach out to the command through your PMSs, through your brigades, or if you want to reach out to us directly on one of our Facebook forums, we will try to answer any questions that we can. If you have a specific question that relates to your specific situation, obviously the best person to talk to is your cadre, your PMS, and I would encourage you to do that. As we wrap things up here, let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, these are uncommon times. I don't know if any of the cadets out there are possibly at home right now viewing this with their parents, but if you are, you can turn to your left and right and ask your mom and dad, when's the last time you went through something like this? And their answer is probably going to be never. None of us has ever experienced something like this, not in the common era, not in the modern Army. The closest thing you could come to it is probably the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic that ran through the country. Very few people alive that can still remember that. So what I would tell you is continue to be patient as we work our way through this. There are a lot of questions. I can tell you with certainty that right now the senior levels of our military, the senior levels of our Army are getting after the types of questions you're asking every day. Not just with regards to what goes on in our small enterprise in Cadet Command, but also what's going on across the Army with regards to how we train the force, how we deploy the force, how we employ the force, how we fight the force, and how we recover the force. We are continuing to apply a lot of rigor to that process so that we can preserve the force and keep our soldiers, families, and civilians safe at the same time. So let me ask you to stay engaged, okay? Stay engaged in your studies, stay engaged with your universities, stay engaged with your ROTC cadre. Let me ask you to stay fit, okay? Continue to do the things that you know you need to do to sustain your personal health. And this is not about PT test scores. This is about being able to do this for the long term. Eat well, rest well, work out, do the things you need to do to stay fit. It'll help your physical shape, it'll help your mental acuity as well. And then finally, just stay patient. We're working through this. There are many unknowns for us. We want to get you information as quickly as we can. Our promise to you is that we will flatten communications as much as possible and push information to you as soon as we have it. But it's just going to require a little bit of patience right now. I hope the forum tonight was helpful in helping you understand where we're at. Again, we will see decisions being made in the next several weeks as we approach the timeline for CST. And as soon as we have that information, we'll push that out there. Continue to do what you folks are doing. Always fly the airplane. And I look forward to seeing you again when we have an opportunity to do some traveling. Leadership excellence.